in that sense, I put a lot of stock into the guy who just took over as head coach, wanting to make this work so badly. It's different. Like, I think back to when Treylon Burks went to Tennessee. Head coach didn't want to see that boy.
Head coach didn't want him.
Head coach was like, where the fuck is A.J. Brown? You know, like, you giving me this? Like, I don't know. I'm not even sure if Treylon ever got a fair shot.
The top 20 rookie wide receivers post NFL draft, giving you the rankings and tiers for some of these guys, for all of these guys, actually, and giving you our expectations for their rookie year. So let's not waste any more time, Zach. Take us through your, obviously we know who's going to be your first tier, so take us to your first tier anyway.
Yeah, first tier is Marvin Harrison Jr., and I do still have Malik Neighbors in this tier. We've heard a lot of concern from people around Malik Neighbors. We've seen a lot of comments of people who are, I guess, potentially scared to draft him. I don't want to say they're scared, but they're putting out a lot of concerns about Daniel Jones, and there's no way he can be successful. I've seen people say, well, Jalen Hyatt struggled last year. I chuckle a little bit to myself because I'm just like, guys, we weren't in on Jalen Hyatt last year. We didn't think he was a good player. We thought he was very limited. We didn't think he was a superstar like Malik Neighbors. But here's the deal with Malik Neighbors. I still have him in the same tier for a couple reasons. Number one, both of these guys should be set for a ridiculously high target share. In fact, you can make a case that Neighbors might be set for a higher target share, 28 to 30%, than Marvin Harrison. Neighbors has no Trey McBride to compete with. As simple as that is. Now, clearly, I do have Marvin Harrison Jr. as my one. He will be my one. I will always draft him as my one because he went to a more favorable situation.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, there is some balancing act there where you can still bet on Neighbors because he's going to be that, Garrett Wilson rookie season type of target share where you're getting 27, 28, 29, 30% of the target share. If he stays healthy, there's no reason why he can't get 130 plus 140 targets as a rookie. I mean, think about that room that you have there in New York, Badaki. Is it Wan'Dale Robinson? Is he going to stay healthy? Sterling Shepard, who is now 65 years old.
He's retired now.
Collecting his retirement fund. I mean, who is there really to compete with there? Darren Waller, we don't know if the guy's playing. We don't know if the guy's starting his rap career or if he's playing ball. We don't really know. And I get it. Daniel Jones, it's kind of concerning. But at the end of the day, as you mentioned, Badaki, to me in a couple different videos, your team has improved the offensive line. It was atrocious last year. You guys spent a lot of time in free agency to improve that. Give him time, give him a weapon, and let's see what happens. But ultimately, this will be the dude. And as far as Marvin Harrison Jr. goes, kind of similar expectations, but you expect it to be more efficient, right? Yeah. Getting targets from Kyler Murray is going to obviously be a little bit better than getting targets from Daniel Jones. I expect both of these guys to be fantasy relevant day one. Like I would be shocked if it's not week one and we're excited to start these guys in our flex spots in redraft leagues, for example. So I would say Marvin has a top 12 ceiling this year. And I would say Malik also has that top 12 to 15 ceiling as a finish. Now, more realistic, if we want to be more realistic, probably top 20, right? But I expect these guys to come out the gate banging.
Yeah, 100%. I would agree more realistically for Malik Neighbors, top 20 finish in my perspective here. And we've seen Brian Dable when he actually has weapons with Daniel Jones. Now, the quarterback play has been completely different. But yes, I do agree Malik Neighbors is going to be set for a phenomenal start to the season.
Great point, by the way. Your former offense coordinator in Buffalo, Brian Dable, we saw Stephon Diggs' greatest years under his offense.
They go out and trade for Stephon Diggs, and you see the emergence of Josh Allen, and then essentially takes the fantasy community by storm, and the fantasy, the QB1 season by storm, and that was because of Stephon Diggs and their connection. Not saying Daniel Jones is going to be QB1, but it's definitely going to make him better. He hasn't had a weapon like this in his career, honestly, since Saquon, and he didn't have him for a year since he tore his ACL, and then those multiple games where he misses with high ankle sprains. But anyways, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, 100% in my tier 2, and don't overthink it. Go with the talent, just how you probably overthought Garrett Wilson, but he still has that opportunity to finish. And look how Garrett Wilson is, wide receiver 7 in the community right now.
And he hasn't even earned it, by the way. No. That's what's crazy. He's not even been like a top 24 points per game performer so far. Go check his points per game finishes. He's not even earned that title yet, but because we love him, because the talent is there, because of draft capital, because he's shown flashes, because he's got the targets, he's top 10, locked and loaded, unquestioned.
Tier 2, right? Take us through it.
One guy low, standing on his own, Rome Odunze, goes to the Chicago Bears. Yep. And I think there's been some confusion potentially with the way that we've conveyed our feelings on Rome, but just to be very clear, we love Rome Odunze. We love the player. We love the talent. I've talked many times about how I think he's this perfect mesh between prime Cortland Sutton and Chris Olave combined in there. You've talked about even some T. Higgins to his game.
Yeah.
We've seen some people that we really loved give him a comp to Devontae Adams. He's only gotten love throughout this entire process. He's been our wide receiver 3 since December, and he's also our wide receiver 3 now. But we have been the ones, I guess, of anyone to try and lower expectations. When we talk about rookie season expectations, I do want to lower the bar a little bit for Rome Odunze. I don't think it's the same bar that we have set for Marvin and Malik Neighbors. And honestly, it's quite simple. You got a guy in DJ Moore who just finished as a top 10 wide receiver for fantasy last year. And that guy who accounted for over 30% of Chicago's total receiving offense, not target share, over 30% of the team's total receiving offense, point blank, period. Now, you also just brought in an alpha in Keenan Allen, who is set for 150 targets per year in LA with Justin Herbert, even before Justin Herbert's time. So we have to be honest here. When you look at these backfields and people that you are competing with a piece of that pie for, Rome Odunze faces the most challenges to become a breakout year one.
No question.
If you're saying these 3 names, who has the best chance to be a Puka, a Chase, a Jefferson? Odunze, in my humble opinion, has the lowest chance to do that. And it's not because he's not talented enough, but it's because he's trying to battle with 2 alphas their entire career for target share. And what a lot of people aren't even talking about, by the way, is that he's got a rookie quarterback throwing him the ball. Yes, it is one of the best rookie quarterbacks we've ever seen, one of the best prospects we've ever seen coming out of college, going into one of the best situations we've ever seen. But CJ Stroud might set some really unhealthy expectations based off what he did last year, because we're focusing on CJ Stroud and we're completely ignoring Bryce Young.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you even look back in previous years. How about Trevor Lawrence's rookie year, right? A lot of people have compared him to Trevor Lawrence as a prospect. Who's better?
Sure.
You know, different players, but who's better on the all-time prospect list, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Trevor Lawrence didn't have a very good, relevant wide receiver in his rookie season. Now, he didn't have a talent like Odunze. He didn't have a talent like DJ Moore. But ultimately, if you just go back throughout the last 10 years of the NFL draft, there is a much higher percentage chance that the rookie quarterback does not produce multiple fantasy relevant wide receivers than there is that he does and breaks that mold like CJ Stroud did. So ultimately, I love Odunze, but we have to be a little bit patient here. A little bit patient if you're betting on him. You know, if you're a competing team and you're thinking this guy's going to help me go out and win a championship this year, I can't tell you for sure that's going to be the case. I think 100 to 105, 110 targets is realistic, but you know, it's
I get it.
All those factors we have to consider.
Yeah, 100%. We definitely have to consider it. And, you know, I've been reading the comments, and when people talk about Rome Odunze, one of the comparisons that we had was JSN, and maybe that wasn't the best comparison, but I've been listening to the community, and I see both sides. I see our perspective, and I see their perspective, because a lot of people are saying, well, JSN was a third wide receiver. He played majority in the slot, you know, his rookie year. But Rome Odunze is going to be playing outside because Keenan Allen is going to be playing the slot. And we know Shane Waldron, who's coming from the Seattle Seahawks, if I'm not mistaken, and going to the Chicago Bears. And we saw how he was favored to Tyler Lockett, favored to DK Metcalf. Maybe that switches the conversation, which I understand that conversation. But still, I think we need to lower our expectations, what we are hoping and expecting for a rookie wide receiver now going into a room with 2 veterans who have, like Zach said, proven themselves and have had that target share week in and week out for the Keenan Allen, last 10 years of his career, and the DJ Moore the last 5 to 6 years of his career. So once again, lower your expectations, but I see the community's standpoint. The situation is different because of that.
I see it too, and I definitely think that there are some valid points, but Keenan Allen is not a only slot receiver either. You know, he plays inside, outside. Pretty much his entire career, actually. I mean, if you look at his career splits, 54% out wide, 45% in line. And over the last 5 years, it's been really towards like 55, 60% in the slot, but there's still that like 35, 40% out wide. Yeah. He's not going to be an exclusive slot receiver. At least I don't think he will be. I'd be surprised if they traded for him at this point in his career to only have him be that. But the point I'm trying to make is maybe we should just lower expectations. Doesn't mean we don't draft him. It doesn't mean we lower him down our board.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe we should lower expectations year one.
100%. I mean, you're still taking him with the third wide receiver coming off the board. Not just because of his situation, because of the talent. We're still taking him in the draft capital there. All right, tier 3.
Tier 3, Brian Thomas Jr. comes in here. Obviously, round 1 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Ladd McConkey and Xavier Worthy are the other guys in this tier. And, you kind of have to, in your mind, decide how much draft capital means to you and how much context you want to consider when thinking about that draft capital. Yeah. And here's what I'm trying to say when I say that. Round 1 wide receivers obviously have a better hit rate than round 2. It's 48% over the last 10 years. That's a top 24 points per game season in the first 4 years. 48.6% is a hit rate for a round 1 wide receiver. When you dip into round 2, it drops about 20%. Okay? However, there is some context we need to consider. And that context is, this is the best offensive class, at least pre-draft, before a player takes a snap, that we have ever seen. Let's put it in a different light. The NFL has never valued the offensive position in a first round the way they did this year. Don't believe me? They broke a record for the amount of offensive players taken in round 1. You and I have talked about this again and again and again before the NFL draft.
100%.
This is the deepest wide receiver class we've ever seen. And it's one of the deepest quarterback classes we've seen. So many guys that could go in round 1. And ultimately, the NFL followed up on that and showed us that what we were feeling was the way that they were feeling. So you have the most offensive players ever to go in round 1 in any draft ever in the history. And then you've got a guy like Ladd McConkey, who is the second pick in round 2. The Chargers trade up for him.
Yeah, that's huge.
Ladd McConkey would be a first-round pick in probably every draft of the last 5 years.
I think so
if we
as
think
well.
about it that way.
Yeah.
So how much do you value the hit rates and how much context do you want to think about when you're thinking about this class individually, how unique it is compared to the last 10 classes that we have that data for? So for me, love Ladd McConkey. He was ahead of Xavier Worthy in my pre-draft scouting grades. And I think he steps into a situation where he gets more opportunity straight away. I know everyone thinks Xavier Worthy is going to be Tyreek Hill straight out the gate. I can tell you, as someone who's followed the Chiefs closely for a long time, Andy Reid, you got to earn your reps with Andy Reid. What Rashee Rice did last year is not common. It is not common that a rookie wide receiver steps in and has this huge role from day one. Now, Xavier could be that dude. He absolutely could. He could break that mold, but still, Xavier Worthy, at some point, people aren't going to like to hear this, is going to compete with Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, and Travis Kelce for targets, who, by the way, just got a contract extension. All the people who are saying, no, you got to take Worthy over Ladd. You got to do that. It makes no sense. He's round 1. He's with the Chiefs. Kelce's going to retire. Sorry, he's not. He just signed a 2-year extension. All right. And it's funny because if you listen to the New Heights podcast last year, he kept saying, I'm having the most fun of my life. Yeah, I'm thinking about retirement all the time. Like, are you guys not thinking about retirement all the time?
Sure.
Like, yeah, there's something to my life outside of this, of course. But I'm having so much fun. There's no way I'm letting this go. He signs an extension. So ultimately, all these guys are in the same tier. I don't mind which order you draft them in. The order I would draft them in is Brian Thomas Jr. was a better prospect in my mind pre-NFL draft, got the better draft capital, and I think he's going to get a chance to be a clear alpha attached to Trevor Lawrence for his career. I got Ladd McConkey ahead of Xavier Worthy because I had him as a better prospect in my grades before the NFL draft. I think he's competing with way worse talent around him, no disrespect, than what Xavier Worthy is, and I think Xavier Worthy is still worthy of being here. And if you guys go watch our live stream, the Alpha Draft, where we did a real rookie draft, you saw me in this exact position in the draft. Hey, Badaki. I was sitting there at the 110, and I had a choice between Brian, Ladd, and Xavier. And I said, I want someone to make this decision for me, please. So I traded back from the 110 to the 112, got a running back that I really needed for my roster, and took Ladd McConkey, who fell to me. That's what I would do if you're in that position where it's like, how do I choose between these guys? Trade back if you can. If not, have some conviction on one of these names.
Yeah, no question about it. And I definitely have Brian Thomas over Ladd McConkey, and I say this multiple times. If you've been with us here, there is a conversation, in my personal opinion, to have Ladd McConkey over Brian Thomas Jr. Now, depending on how that weighs, how the hit rate weighs for you, how maybe the landing spot weighs for you. All these things matter. For me, Brian Thomas and Ladd McConkey were back-to-back in my draft scouting, or my scouting report, right? He was Brian Thomas with my wide receiver 4, Ladd McConkey my wide receiver 5. So the window there is not big, but what it is big is the draft capital. But like Zach said, at the same time, it's really only 2 picks out of the first round. He would have been a first-round pick. There's a conversation now. Do I have Ladd McConkey over Brian Thomas Jr.? No, but the situation is so favorable here. And what I do know is that Brian Thomas Jr. is going into an offense with Travis Etienne, Evan Ingram, and Christian Kirk. And I keep going back to that, and it still makes me want to change Ladd McConkey up to Brian Thomas Jr., but I'm genuinely scared. But yes, I would be doing the same thing. Ladd McConkey trying to trade back into that first round. If you really believe Ladd McConkey is the number 1 wide receiver over Brian Thomas Jr. and Xavier Worthy, take him at the 110, take him at the 19, or wherever you can get him at that time.
I just wanted to quickly say as well, you can tell, like, I don't mean this with any disrespect, by the way. I'm not going to say like I'm some elite scout or anything. We're learning every time we go.
Sure.
But you can tell people who are only the spreadsheet stat guys when they comment about Ladd McConkey. Because to me, I'll be honest, if you're commenting and saying the dude's never produced, I get it, but you have not taken into context the Georgia offense whatsoever. You have not actually looked into the research background of his injuries that he had this year. And you haven't watched any film. Anyone who you respect in the film industry is in on Ladd McConkey. All right. Yeah, we were in on him early, but we weren't the only ones. Even Matt Harmon loved Ladd McConkey. Daniel Jeremiah. Name an NFL draft analyst you like. I promise you they like Ladd McConkey. Okay. Yeah. This wasn't some crazy reach where the Chargers took Ladd. A lot of people thought he would go round 1 anyway.
Yeah. So. Look, all depends on how you want to envision this here. I would say this for Xavier Worthy. I was hoping Travis Kelce was going to retire sooner rather than later. I'm not saying it knocks him down my board, but I think it does adjust my expectations potentially.
Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones. Honestly,
did you see that?
Yeah, I did see that. It does adjust my expectations for him coming into for the future, for the next 2 to 3 years, because. Look, I was hoping that he can easily be the number 1, maybe even number 2 wide receiver, with the hopes of Kelce maybe walking, because that was the biggest conversation all offseason. But you did say he was loving it. He was playing the game. He doesn't want to go. Maybe he wants to go for the 3-peat. Something
that I mentioned right after the NFL draft is I said I'm not convinced that Rashee Rice is automatically demoted to number 2 in this offense as far as a target share perspective. I still feel that way. What Rashee Rice did, the amount of work that he earned, is not common for Andy Reid. It's not common for the Chiefs for a rookie wide receiver to do that. That was the second greatest rookie wide receiver season ever from a rookie wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs. He has the most receptions ever from a rookie wide receiver in Kansas City. What he did, what he earned, I know off the field issues this offseason is not common. So I'm not convinced that automatically, I'm not saying it's not possible, but I'm not convinced that automatically Worthy's going to jump Rice either. We'll see. Maybe he will.
Yeah, we'll definitely see here. So let us know what you think of this tier 3 here. Let's take us to your tier 4.
Yeah, tier 4, Ricky Pearsall. Let's just get through the tier and we'll talk.
Sure.
Xavier Legette and then Keon Coleman. That's the 3 there in tier 4. Ricky is tough.
Ricky is very tough right now.
Really like him. A lot of people love him. Even Matt Harmon, who we all respect a lot, I think had him top 6 or 7 in his rankings. And the fact that he went that high wasn't necessarily a surprise to a lot of people. Now, the issue is we were expecting this to be like a Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit with Swift there situation last year. We expected, okay, there's a trade coming. And maybe that trade is still going to come. But at the moment, it's a little bit difficult to envision how he breaks out. Because, by the way, Brandon Ayuk did not get like 150 targets last year, guys. Ayuk was thriving off of efficiency. If you had Ayuk in fantasy, there would be some days where he had like 4 catches, but 20 points because there was a touchdown and like a 50-yard bomb. He had 120 targets last year. So it's not like he was like a 150, 145 type of target player. He was thriving off of efficiency. And that deep ball really helped him as well as the red zone. Now, if Ayuk and Debo don't get moved, there's a limited ceiling here for this player in year one. We like him. We're still in on him. Love the round one value. But the moment that Debo or Ayuk gets traded, we'll have a different conversation entirely because the talent is there, no doubt.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I completely agree. And what's scaring me now at the moment, which I think is going to scare a lot of people, are the recent reports. Like, yeah, Ayuk and Debo haven't come to an agreement, but the San Francisco 49ers are working on a long-term deal for both of these guys, or to keep both of these guys happy. And if they keep both of these guys happy at the same time, where does that slot in Ricky Pearsall? And I think that I wouldn't be surprised maybe by, May, June, maybe whenever you do your rookie drafts, Ricky Pearsall and maybe Brandon Ayuk gets a contract extension and they keep Debo Samuel. Ricky Pearsall is going to fall to the, I would say, middle to end of the second round here, which is going to really suck for first round draft capital wide receiver, because I'm not necessarily sure when he's going to have a good fantasy return.
Yeah. You can go even as far back as Brandon Ayuk. Ayuk had a good rookie year, but there was some up and downs there while he was earning the trust of Kyle Shanahan as well. But Legette's there as well. They decide he was their dude, and if it feels like Canales is like, this is my dude. All right, this is the guy we wanted. We moved up one spot maybe for the 5th-year option, but he talked about how much he loved Carolina. He's from South Carolina. Obviously, that's where he went to college, is what I'm saying. And it seems like they wanted that marriage to happen so desperately. So in that sense, I put a lot of stock into the guy who just took over as head coach, wanting to make this work so badly. It's different. Like, I think back to when Treylon Burks went to Tennessee. Head coach didn't want to see that boy.
Head coach didn't want him.
Head coach was like, where the fuck is A.J. Brown? You giving me this? Like, I don't know. I'm not even sure if Treylon ever got a fair shot. Like, obviously, that's my bias showing, but completely different, right?
Yeah.
This coach was like, that's my dude, okay?
100%.
So I do put some stock into that. I have some real concerns on his ability to separate, but maybe if they scheme him up in certain ways, it's interesting. And then Keon Coleman, not a guy that you and I are ultimately all that high on as a prospect. No. We think there are some big red flags.
Not at all.
I don't want to upset people, but I wouldn't be surprised if he has a similar target share to like a Curtis Samuel this year.
Sure. I agree.
I think they're going to play very different roles, but Keon is not the Stephon Diggs replacement. You don't replace Stephon Diggs with a guy who doesn't gain separation very much. I mean, this is maybe the Gabe Davis replacement, like you said that before, but he could be someone who ends up with 10 touchdowns. Like, this could be a Jahan Dotson type rookie year where the targets aren't like crazy, but the touchdowns are there. But ultimately, he could prove us wrong. He's a great athlete. He could absolutely develop at the next level. Yeah,
developing at the next level, I think, is probably the pathway there for Keon Coleman. It Gabe Davis type of opportunities here. We got to wait to see what that looks like. He's a funny ass dude. I tell you that. I've been watching the interviews. Yeah. I like him just because of that. As a person, as a player, I'm not in love with him. Xavier Legette, the one thing I would say with Dave Canales' offense, you saw what he did with Mike Williams. Not that Xavier Legette is Mike Evans, excuse me. Not that Mike Evans or Xavier Legette is Mike Evans, but hopefully he could play that same role, because Baker Mayfield just was peppering Mike Evans with targets, and hopefully maybe Bryce Young does that with his new big body wide receiver here in Xavier Legette. So I like all of these guys here. Tier 5.
Yeah. Tier 5A, by the way. I called it 5A just because I feel like 5B, I'd be willing to trade down for some of these dudes. I'd be happy with that. But I would put Jalen Polk here. Jermaine Burton. I'm noticing that you and I are higher on Burton and Franklin than most people will be.
Yeah.
First things first, Burton was my wide receiver 10 pre-NFL draft. Loved his film.
Agreed. Same.
I was obsessed with this dude. Great route runner, incredible technique. He's got that dog. He plays above his weight. And this is the type of dude that has that mentality. I'm going to be anyone, even if it's delusional, I'm going to be anyone across from me. He just has that fire inside of him you want. And really, I felt like he was going to be this year's Jaden Reed. I said that before the NFL draft. I still feel like there's a possibility, because Reed was in a wide receiver room with a lot of talented guys. He didn't get a lot of targets. He had a very efficient season, though, towards the end of the year. And then Troy Franklin, we have to marry pre-scouting grades and our conviction on a player. We were high on Troy Franklin. We have to marry that with the draft capital and what that meant historically as a 4th-round pick, it's not very good. And we also have to marry the context of the situation.
I agree.
Knowing that he is going straight to Bo Nix, the same dude that made him that dude, if you will, at Oregon for 2 years in a row. That connection is already there. That chemistry, there's years of chemistry already built into this connection. And if Sean Payton, said, "Hey, Bo, you want us to go get your boy?" Yes, I would like that, Mr. Sean Payton. All right, we'll trade up. We got your guy. There is plenty of reason for me to bet on that. And ultimately, I am recognizing that it would be an outlier if Troy Franklin hit, because round 4 wide receivers do not hit at a high rate at all.
No, and I completely agree. And I have Troy Franklin the height of Jermaine Burton. This may sound crazy. I love the talent.
It's okay.
I mean, we had Troy Franklin as our wide receiver 5 in this class, both pre-draft, pre-scouting rankings here. And it's just unfortunate that he fell to the 4th round. But once again, the context is, I think, the biggest thing in this situation. The talent's still there. He probably had one of the worst NFL combines, I would say. I feel like we saw since out of this incredible class. And that's probably why he fell. But I think, like you said, the marriage with Bo Nix, the new offensive coordinator, where there's really a pathway to genuinely for him becoming the wide receiver 1 there. I know Cortland Sutton is still there and Marvin Mims is there, but I can see him being the wide receiver 1 on this team for the future. Maybe at the end of the season, maybe he is the next Jaden Reed. Maybe he is a league-winning type of wide receiver, a Rashee Rice for the fantasy community here. So I like Troy Franklin in this year. Jalen Polk becoming the wide receiver 1, in my personal opinion, over there with Drake May in the New England Patriots. They draft him in the top second round. Yeah, round 2, really early draft capital, which I really like there for Troy Franklin. And I liked him coming out. I think he was one of my sleepers coming in.
Polk, yep.
Yeah, Jalen Polk. So I like this landing spot and the opportunity that he can see there with Drake May.
All right, we're going to get into 5B, but just before we do, we want to let you guys know that if you want your Dynasty team reviewed by Badaki and myself, it's very simple. All you got to do is become a Mother Flocker member with the promo code LAND. You will see us on this channel going live multiple times a week, reviewing people's Dynasty teams, giving them a direction to go, trying to scheme up some trades within their league that could improve their team or could improve the direction that they need to go, helping them decide how to use their draft capital. If you want that experience, then again, become a Mother Flocker member with the promo code LAND. And not only will you get a Dynasty team review, but you will also get everything you see here on your screen. All right, 5B here. And I said 5B because I already know there's going to be so many comments. What the hell is this player so low for? There's no way this guy can be that low. Hopefully people come to our channel to hear opinions that aren't just their own. They want to hear different opinions, and they're open to it. But we'll find out. We'll find out. Malachi Corley's in this tier. Love Corley. I actually kind of do like the landing spot, but I have some concerns, and we'll talk about that.
Sure.
Roman Wilson maybe goes to the perfect landing spot for him. Adonai Mitchell, this will be a big bomb. A lot of people will hate this. I love Jalen McMillan, and then I also have Javon Baker here. But what do we want to talk about first? Because I know there's quite a few landmines here we're about to step on.
Let's go for it. Let's go straight for the big one here, Adonai Mitchell. I think a lot of people were expecting him to be a first-round pick. Obviously, he falls into the second round, falling all the way middle of the second round, going to the Indianapolis Colts. One of our biggest things were the concerns, and maybe you can touch on that a little bit more, is what are the concerns for Adonai Mitchell and maybe your expectations going for maybe his whole career, not just rookie season, but I think it's for the next 4 years, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head there, because it really is my concern on the ability to paint a picture of a breakout.
Sure.
And there's a lot of factors at play here. I know so many people just want to say, it doesn't matter. You guys know this guy should have gone round 1. Well, he didn't. Okay? He didn't go round 1. Plenty of teams let him fall actually way into round 2. He didn't go round 1, okay? I'm sorry. I hate to say it.
Teams that needed wide receivers, by the way. Teams that keep that in mind. There was multiple teams in front that absolutely needed wide receivers, and they went in a different direction. Continue.
He's an extremely talented player, and I would not be surprised if we miss on this. I am prepared to miss on this. I don't want to miss on the other players ahead of him. But here's the thing. Number 1, we got to talk about the quarterback play here. Gardner Minshew is not your starting quarterback. Gardner Minshew was the reason, respectfully, Michael Pittman had this incredible career year. It's why I'm not too scared of Devontae Adams this year. Okay? We don't know what would have happened with Anthony Richardson and Michael Pittman if Anthony Richardson stayed healthy. We have a small sample size. Do you guys want to see that sample size? It's not great. Just pull up sleeper, okay? Because there were 2 games where Anthony Richardson was healthy the entire game. One of those games was when Michael Pittman had 27 PPR points. Fantastic. Let's just look at that. Oh, well, we also have to look at the other game where A-Rich was healthy and Pittman had 6 targets, caught one of them, and had like 4 points or something, right? We have to look at both of those games. They're the only games where A-Rich was healthy. That's not enough sample size for us to really project anything at all. But what we do know about Anthony Richardson is he was a player who was drafted for his athleticism, not for his quarterbacking. And I loved A-Rich, but Aki, do you remember the year before A-Rich was drafted? I was telling people, be careful for this dude. He's a freak. Like, this guy's got Cam Newton type athleticism.
No question. Yeah.
However, the issue is the guy's never completed over 55% of his passes in college. He only started 1 year. This is like Trey Lance levels of concern for your receiver in fantasy. I'm not saying he's going to be Trey Lance. I'm not going to say he's going to lose his job. I think he'll be the starter. But what I'm saying is, when you're talking about relying on a quarterback to give you fantasy points, we do not know that A-Rich can do that. There is no evidence in his collegiate career to tell us he can support even Michael Pittman, their number 1. Okay? So now we have to ask, can Adonai Mitchell break out or have a good season? Can he improve his value in a year's time? With what will pretty much be a rookie quarterback in Anthony Richardson, who has a long way to go as a passer. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe A-Rich comes out and completes 67% of his passes. All right? That would be the biggest jump in efficiency and accuracy we've ever seen historically from a quarterback ever in the history of this game. Wouldn't even be close.
Right.
All right? So maybe we're completely wrong. But you have to ask yourself, if you're a Michael Pittman owner, am I concerned at all? How do I look at this moving forward? And now we have to ask about potentially the number 2, Adonai Mitchell. Can he break out in an offense that might be more built around the run game with JT and A-Rich than it will be around volume in the air? And by the way, we haven't even talked about Josh Downs.
Exactly.
Is Josh Downs not going to be a factor either? I think you're betting on just too many things, and there'll be people who are like, you're an idiot, bet on the talent. Fine, like, do it. But I can paint a picture for so many players ahead of Adonai Mitchell, and I cannot paint that same picture for him. I'll hold my hands up. I'll say I'm wrong, but I'm sorry. I can't paint that picture as well as the others.
I completely agree. We were kind of big advocates of Michael Pittman being sold in the offseason. Obviously, we were wrong on that, but that was because of Anthony Richardson, not because of Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew comes in, takes over. Michael Pittman is a top 15 wide receiver. We're not necessarily sure how it's going to pan out with now 3 wide receivers on this offense that can demand some opportunity. So, look, the talent's there. The situation's not the best. You're basically saying Anthony Richardson has to support 2 top, at least minimum 24 wide receivers. If he does that, that is great. That is phenomenal. But
that would be crazy.
That would be crazy. That would be crazy to say that right now, because we've seen that with rookie quarterbacks and C.J. Stroud. We've seen that essentially with Jordan Love, where he really only did it with 1 wide receiver and Jayden Reed. But, Christian Watson wasn't healthy. Like, we've seen it glimmers here and there. But Anthony Richardson, we loved him because of the mobility and what he can do on the ground with his legs, not because he was an amazing passer, because what we knew he was going to return for us in fantasy as a rushing quarterback, like the Lamar Jackson, the Justin Fields. It took Justin Fields nearly 4 years to have a top weapon and also produce a top fantasy wide receiver. That could be the same for Anthony Richardson. So definitely keep that in mind when we are talking about Adonai Mitchell. It's not because of the talent. It's not because we don't like him as a player. It's because of the situation. You may see the situation differently, and that's okay.
By the way, can I just jump in quickly? I know people will be upset that we have him above Troy Franklin, and I get it. Like, fair enough. We're making a call here. You might hate that, but we're making a call here. What I will say is, if you're upset that we have round 3 guys ahead of him, then respectfully, the hit rate isn't that different in round 2 and round 3 historically anyway. So,
right. Round 3 and 4. Yeah, right. That's fair. I guess the next
rounds 2 and 3.
Yeah, rounds 2 and 3. Any other person you want to talk about here? You said it was in the couple landmines. Maybe it's Malachi Corley. Maybe you wanted to talk about.
I guess really Adonai was the landmine.
Okay.
Maybe I was exaggerating for the sake of content. I don't know.
And that's fine.
I think I'll do a quick little run through Corley.
Sure.
I love Corley. I am still concerned long term about the quarterback play there. And we know he's not going to be the number 1. Like, there's no question he becomes the number 1 there. Roman Wilson, I think he's a perfect complement to
Love it.
George Pickens, but still, we don't really know that his quarterback play is going to be good. At least the guys who have, they haven't really been that good in the last 2 years that are going to be throwing him the ball. Jalen McMillan, my favorite sleeper in this class, my guy, my go-to. I think he is a long-term play. And Javon Baker might have the highest ceiling of anyone in this tier, because I think there's a chance he could be the number one in New England. I'm not saying he will be, but I think he has that upside.
That opportunity is there with Javon Baker. Brought him as a sleeper so far in the middle of thirds that you can go out and get. Could potentially be the number one or the wide receiver 2 there with Drake May. So yes, I love Javon Baker and all these guys in these tiers. I would say outside of Jalen McMillan. Sorry about that. Tier 7.
It's fine. I mean, if he hits, I'll just be able to get all the glory.
Please.
I'll take it.
I'll praise you.
Tier 7 is Luke McCaffrey, Tez Walker. It's very short, very simple. I'll be honest with you guys. There was no real reason to be in on Luke McCaffrey outside of the bloodline before the NFL draft. Now he gets day 2 capital. I don't really know how to value this guy. I mean, you got Dotson, you got Terry there. They also just drafted Ben Sinnott. I don't know where Luke fits in. Is this a Curtis Samuel replacement? Maybe, but people who are saying that are not recognizing that it's a completely different offense anyway.
I completely
Different
agree.
staff. I don't know. I think he's a fun, dart throw for sure, but I don't know how much stock I put into it. And then Tez Walker, round 4 was it? Round 5, I can't remember, but stuck in Baltimore. I don't see really. I'll be honest. Of any name we have talked about today, he would shock me the absolute most if he had a breakout season. I can't paint that picture whatsoever.
Yeah, and it's tough for both of these guys. I feel like they go into dead landing spots, in my personal opinion. I do like the Ravens for a landing spot, but to be honest, for a top, one of these top, if Xavier Worthy went to the Ravens, I love that because I expected the draft capital to be there. But this draft capital for Tez Walker that went in the 4th round to go alongside Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers, I'm not necessarily loving it because I don't see a pathway to production. Same thing with Luke McCaffrey. Yeah. That means you have to take away from Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin. I guess we saw that last year with Curtis Samuel, but I think once again a whole new head coaching regime, and they draft him in the 2nd round. Maybe they don't like Jahan Dotson. I don't know, but that would be crazy if he surpasses Jahan Dotson.
I did think about that. Do they want McCaffrey to be the guy over Dotson? I don't know. I doubt it. But
Jahan Dotson's a great talent. I don't understand what's happening. Why?
Yeah. No. Super efficient. He had some drop issues last year, but he's getting open all the time. So
yeah, 100%.
I think Daniels is going to love that. All right, and just quickly dart throws. Jacob Coing, Jamari Thrash, Brendan Rice. None of these guys went to situations we like. Well, Brendan Rice did. But Brendan Rice was a round 7 NFL wide receiver.
Yeah.
And by the way, to clarify, round 7 NFL wide receivers,
oh boy,
0% hit rate in the last 10 years. Not to say he can't be the exception, but it's tough to paint that picture like we keep saying, Picasso. And then Cohen, player we love. How the hell is he going to survive?
I mean, he's a special teams player, in my personal opinion. He's going to be a kickoff returner, punt returner type of situation. That's how I'm envisioning Jacob Cohen. But yeah, he goes to the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, you just get Ricky Pearsall. You have Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
I get it. Well, that is it for today, guys. We appreciate y'all big time. Do us a favor, hit that like button, show some love. Subscribe if you like the Dynasty content, and we will see you guys very, very soon. All love. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy. Even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.